young families, 3 and 4, they're sponges. They'll pick up the language as soon as they walk in the classroom. And it is a fantastic way of life for children. The schools, they're growing their own vegetables, particularly the countryside. They're learning so much. They're learning 2 languages.
What's a common mistake that you see people making with buying French property?
I think the biggest mistake, well, not the biggest mistake, but one of the mistakes is that they see a French property and it's really cheap. It's like 20,000 euros. And they think, fantastic, we're going to move over, we're going to buy it, we're going to do it all up, and then we're going to sell it, or we're going to live in it. But renovation costs are really underestimated. And just because the property is 20,000, you could end up spending 100,000 on it, and it might only be worth 80. So they've got to be very careful. Sometimes it's better to look for something that's already done and just do cosmetic changes, unless you really do research your area and know that you can make money on the property.
Yes, that's
could
really
be quite
good
a lot.
advice.
It's difficult because we take on properties, or we go to take on properties, and they say, well, we've spent 150,000 on it. But properties have a ceiling in different areas, and so that could be, something to always look out for, is the cost of renovation.
Don't get sucked in with
Yes,
that.
exactly, with the cheap price of the house.
100%. Okay, what's your favourite French food?
Well, I love all things French, and foie gras, which is really un-PC, I really like, but I'm in a Dordogne area where they make so much of it. Oysters are fantastic in France, because I'm near the Charente-Maritime,
very nice.
and all of our little Sunday restaurants and bars do the Sunday morning oysters that everybody goes for. The markets do the oysters, so I'd say that my oysters are probably the favourite.
Yum.
Yeah.
Okay, what's the most embarrassing French language mistake you've made?
There's loads of those.
Yes, I have a list as
mistakes
well.
in French. Yeah, I think the funniest was when I was at a dinner party. It was in the garden, and it started to get cold. And I said I was going to go in and get my pool, and everyone started laughing, and I couldn't understand why, because I'd pronounced pool, which I thought was pullover, but it's actually a chicken.
Oh, pool,
and so they said I'd gone to get my chicken, and so that was probably the embarrassing
one.
funny
I like that.
one. Yeah.
That's really good. Okay, if you could live anywhere in France, where would it be?
Well, obviously where I live, because I live there and I've been there 20 years. And I do travel around France. I love the Languedoc-Roussillon area. I love the historical buildings and the villages there. That would be an area. The Alps, fantastic. Don't think I could do the snow all year round, the snow all season, but beautiful areas. I mean, there are so many lovely areas in France. I think if you asked any agents on our stand, they'd all say their area, because that's where they chose.
That's
so
true. And where's home
I'm in
for
the
you?
Dordogne.
Okay,
I'm in the Dordogne,
very
and
popular.
it is really, really pretty.
And for a good reason.
Yeah.
Okay, so how is the French property market looking in 2025?
Well, it's on the up, which is a good thing. Since October, last year there were 750,000 sales in France, which is very low. Bearing at its peak, we were doing over 1 million. But they are forecasting around 900,000 this year, and a 2% increase in prices. So it is definitely changing, and it is going back up slowly, but going back up, which is good news for us all.
What are some of the most popular areas for British buyers to buy in France?
British buyers, they tend to follow the television, of course, and a lot of those featuring the Languedoc-Roussillon, the southwest of France. The centre of France is very popular, the Limousin areas, for example, because the property prices are so cheap. So if people are looking for something big but not a big pot of money, then those areas are fantastic. The Dordogne probably the most popular with British buyers, although it's not saturated with Brits at all. I'm actually the only Brit in my village.
Well, that's good to hear. Yeah, I think
so
some people
have that
it's,
impression. But it's actually not so bad. And plus, it's 2 hours from one side of the Dordogne to the other. It's a huge area. The cities, Bordeaux is a beautiful city. If you're looking for city life or just outside Bordeaux, that would be a city that I would try to be close to. My nearest city is Angoulême. Brittany is beautiful, and it's not too far from the UK, so you can get there in a
good
day.
connections with the ferries.
Exactly, and also if you're travelling with pets, if it's a holiday home,
that's a good point.
and you've got a dog, you get off the ferry, you don't want to be driving all the way down to the Côte d'Azur.
Very true,
You want to be somewhere that's nice and near and the dog's not in the car for too long. So that's a really pretty, lovely area as well, very popular with the Brits.
Great. Is it a good time to sell a French property?
Yes, because there's so many buyers. There are so many buyers, so it has been more of a vendor's market, because they've been in the old days it might take 6 months or a year to sell a property.
but because there's been a shortage of stock, we usually hold about 16,000, we've got 7,000. So you can see how little amount of stock there has, and I think that's been due to the interest rates going up for the French. They haven't moved because they've got such a low mortgage rate. Why would they increase that to move?
That makes sense.
So from a vendor's point of view, if you put your property on now, you are going to have an abundance of buyers, which in a few years, when the interest rates stable out, it's not going to be quite the same. So it's a very good time to sell.
Okay. Okay, last one. What advice would you give to somebody moving to France with a family?
Well, first of all, the age of the children. If they're doing exams or anything like that, I wouldn't move now.
Right.
Because let them finish their exams, because if they don't speak the language, they're coming into a totally different education system.
True, yeah.
And unless you move near or you can board the children at an international school where they can finish their curriculum, it will be different. Always young families, 3 and 4, they're sponges. They'll pick up the language as soon as they walk in the classroom. And it is a fantastic way of life for children. The schools, they're growing their own vegetables, particularly the countryside. They're learning so much. They're learning 2 languages, if they're speaking English, they're learning French. There's no crime. You don't have to worry. The children go out and play like we used to do in the old days and come back when they're hungry. They're not sitting in a room playing computer games. And they have local friends from the village that they'll play with and they go outside with. The families is, I would say, such a wonderful, healthy and safe place to live. Which is so different to when I come back to the UK now. There's a worry for young families. And you just don't get that in the countryside in France.
Okay, brilliant.